Chapter 12. Pandora's Box. The city looked very different back then. People bustled about their daily business, and Crowhaven was thriving through its diverse population. Positivity abounded, and a bright future was all that its citizens could imagine for themselves. Long, sweeping shots of the streets, filled with laughing people and bright lights that made everything look like a circus, flashed across the screen, like a tour of the town. The busy theatrical district filled with actors and fans. The park filled with children playing and families having picnics. And at last the many substations, built to make travel around the city quick and painless. The video showed a few brief advertisements for the city, highlighting its beautiful architecture and the many goals for better living that the city lived by before the nature of the tape suddenly changed. Cephas Pandora was shown sitting comfortably in his office chair and overlooking a magnificent view of Crowhaven from a tower window. He was obviously very comfortable and enjoying a moment of leisure as head of the successful enterprise that the city had become. The office that held him was immaculately decorated with various expensive-looking furniture. A bookshelf to his left held many books that the leather binding had begun wearing off from. His dark figure had just moved to play with a golden globe that sat on his desk, when a knock came from the other side of his door. "Not now, Henrietta, I'm busy." His voice sounded as commanding and powerful as his infamous image appeared. Another knock responded from the other room. "Henrietta, I'm not taking calls now," he said, a bit louder than before. No reply whatsoever came from his secretary. Pandora moved to relax back into the comfort of his easy chair, just as the door to his office flew open, and 7 heavily armored men stormed in with assault rifles ready to fire. "What's the meaning of this?" asked Pandora, nearly losing the cigar from his mouth as he stood. The tape suddenly cut to a different scene, an incredibly dark room where Cephas Pandora could be seen on the floor and brought to his knees. He had been bound by a rope at his feet and wrists, and appeared to have been beaten rather badly. One of his apparent kidnappers stepped on screen and held Pandora's face harshly. "You will pay up, old man. Nobody in your city even cares that you're gone. They've all turned for our side now. You should just give up." He smacked Pandora's left cheek and grinned wide. "I don't know what it is you want." "All we want is power," the man replied. But he must have heard something, for just as the words left his lips, he directed his attention towards the ceiling. The quality of the video distorted dramatically, but Milo could still make out that a team of soldiers rappelled down from some other tower window and into the room with Cephas and his abductors. The flash of their gunfire filled the screen as the camera tumbled to the ground, and all Milo could hear was yelling as the video continued to jumble and finally changed completely. Cephas Pandora was back safe in the confines of his office and was now sitting across from Heiress Deianira, the founder of Elite Industries. She was a gorgeous woman and held herself with the enticing allure of someone who was aware of their beauty. Her elegant jewelry danced as she moved and made it hard to look away from her. "You understand, of course, that your team have saved my life from the very brink of death?" he asked her. "It was simply all we could do for someone of your stature, sir." Her voice was cold and her words obviously calculated. Milo could tell her tone didn't seem to match the words leaving her mouth, but Cephas seemed to be enamored with his would-be savior. "I would have your team work with me on the security and council of safety for the city, if you would be interested in such a venture." Cephas spoke, almost weakly. "Your team has proven quite formidable under pressure, and I have no doubt that it was your expertise that led them to victory. It would mean very much to me." Pandora almost sounded like he was begging her for help. The command in his voice had vanished, and Deianira took full advantage of the situation. Her flowing white dress seemed to glow and shimmer in the light as her eyes widened and she made her move. I'm certain there are terms to which we could come to some sort of agreement on. Her smile stretched from ear to ear, and the tape changed again. It was some sort of company press conference. Clearly, only the people who held powerful positions within the city were welcome to this affair. The room was as elegant as Milo had ever seen, with gold inlays and white marbled floors. Heiress Deianira stood at a podium at the end of several tables, with her diamond earrings swinging from her ears as she spoke. Her green dress pulled all the attention in the room to her. We are gathered here today to unveil something quite remarkable. Our new and all-encompassing soldier program is finally ready for full release. As many of you already know, we have been developing the implant for several months, and the progress recently has been exponential. With the finalization of the latest model, we can finally confirm that Elite is prepared to begin administrating the implant to the citizens of Crowhaven. This was met with varied reactions from her audience. This will enable us to move towards protection from further attempts at assassination. Cephas Pandora has graciously already given the proper permissions to move forward with the project. With these words, she motioned to where Cephas was sitting in the crowd. He stood in the boardroom, gave an apprehensive applause. Thank you, he called as he waved them on. No longer will our glorious city fear being overrun by criminals and those of us who would see the dream torn down. We will grow prosperously and successfully as Pandora originally envisioned for Crowhaven, said Eris from her podium. With a burst of static, the scene jumped to another. This time, it turned to another public advertisement for Crowhaven. It was making announcements for the upcoming wedding of Cephas Pandora, founder of the fine city, and Heiress Deianira, leader of Elite Industries and new head of city protection. Join us as the leaders of our great home continue to unite and lead us all forward and into a better tomorrow, said an unseen narrator. The sound of the video cracked, and Milo could hear Cephas yelling. It seemed that perhaps some of his sense of authority had returned to him, and something was making him angry. I'll not allow it, Eris. It was one thing to pull some of the citizens into this as time went by, but the schedule you have proposed, it would drain the city dry. Eris moved across the room with grace and composure. Her body appeared to glide across the floor effortlessly. You simply have to trust me, dearest. She placed a hand across his cheek. Already, there are people talking on the streets of your possible removal. They plan and scheme in private while masquerading as patriots in public. I'm afraid we've heard so many rumors, my love. Soon they may decide to attack, just as they once did. We must be ready for something like that, Cephas, we must. You do remember what happened the last time they decided to attack you, don't you? Her eyes narrowed like a cat, and Pandora retreated. Of course I do, he said. Well, I simply couldn't allow something like that to happen again. I couldn't bear to see you hurt, or lose what you have built. I know you hold the city dear to your heart. I only wish to help you keep it. It isn't right, I tell you. It's not what I wanted for Crowhaven, or for my city. He slammed a fist into the table, and she returned to him a hand on his own. Cephas, I have some news for you that may be difficult to handle, but it may affect your thinking. She smiled wickedly. I'm pregnant. His expression changed completely to one of shock. The scene became hazy and slipped on to the next. Cephas was once again brought to his knees, but this time he was weeping in front of a baby's crib. The child within was sleeping peacefully, as her father sighed in great pain. I'm so sorry, Alice. It's all been my fault. he whimpered softly. Deianira briskly entered from behind him and took Cephas into her arms. He brushed her away with force. I don't need to hear your lies and excuses this time. There's no suitable answer for this terrible thing you've done now, Eris. She is still our child, Cephas, and we were only testing it, she began in a voice that almost sounded human. Just imagine the possibilities of controlling the minds of the people before they're even born. We could build our community. I did this for you. He jumped and matched her gaze eye to eye. Don't you dare. This has always been your plan. I've been a fool. He shook his head and released her stare. He turned to his baby once more before turning and leaving the scene. Again, the video changed. Eris Deianira was standing over Pandora, who was being detained by two of Elite's soldiers. What have you done with her? Asked Eris as her long white gown waved in the wind. What have you done with our daughter? I've sent her away to be free of us in this mistake. I've sent her away so she can grow, live as a young girl is supposed to. I've sent her to a family that will love her as we never would have been able to. Cephas coughed and spat in Eris's face after he finished speaking, but Eris merely smiled and wiped it away. You have made a grave and serious miscalculation, my love. I will find her. She stepped forward and withdrew a needle from her jacket pocket. Pandora struggled with his restraints but could only watch in fear as she drove the needle deep into his neck. He watched the contents of which rush into his veins, and his eyes rolled back into his head. When they opened again, they were glazed, and his captors released him from their holds. Rise, Eris commanded. Without protest or objection, Cephas Pandora stood and remained attentive to his wife. Once more the video grew heavy with static and switched over to a new scene. Back into the elegant boardroom, Eris Deianira had taken the seat next to the podium, and Pandora stood to speak. His words were kept low and sounded incredibly deliberate, much like his citywide radio broadcasts had been. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the brink of a new age. Soon, all the world will marvel at the dream and the power of Crowhaven. The entire globe will wonder at our power and success. The audience applauded heavily. Yes, as you have heard, I'm sure, we will be officially moving forward with the Elite DSR program and developing our forces, with which we will soon storm the beaches of the world. We will show them our might, and we will bring Crowhaven and our dream to all the cities of the great countries. Our vision will soon reign supreme. The boardroom exploded into a rapturous but mechanical applause, and Cephas waved his familiar hand to all of them with a wide smile and hazy eyes. Next to him in her chair, Eris Deianira unfolded her hands and joined the crowd in support. Her cold stare, however, remained a haunting and remarkable sight. Our future begins now, Cephas said to his adoring audience. And the tape ended.